Welcome to another episode of Crawfordsville Connection, the City of Crawfordsville's weekly podcast that comes out every Monday morning. I'm your host, Sarah Summer, and I'm joined in the studio every week with Mayor Todd Barton to keep our community up to date on current events, city workings, and to hear from community members on a variety of topics. Thank you so much for joining us, and we hope you enjoyed the show. Welcome back to another episode of Crawfordsville Connection. I'm your host, Sarah Summer. Today, I'm joined in the studio by Mayor Todd Barton.
Hello.
Hello. How are you?
Good.
Good.
Yeah, it's good to be here.
Yes, we have no announcements today.
No announcements.
But
We're working on some.
We
but
are.
They're not quite ready.
But we have a fun episode.
We do. These are one of my favorites.
Yes.
To do these episodes.
You know, along with our general update, this gives people accurate information, but in a different way. It's not really an update on the projects we have going on. We are doing a frequently asked questions episode. And these are things that we have people calling into the mayor's office.
Yep.
We see on social media, they send emails about, or they're searching our website for.
Yes. Combination of all of the above, or just coming up to us.
Yes.
You know, some of these are questions that I get that people just ask me. And these are questions I get asked frequently.
Yes.
Thus the frequently asked question.
Yes.
So yeah, it'll be fun.
Okay. Well, we'll just go ahead and kick it right off and start off with, why does water stand on Market Street at the railroad crossing?
Yeah, I get that question a lot. Now, I think it has been cleared for a few days, at least anyway. There's not been water there for a few days, but you frequently see that. And there's a combination of things going on there. One, there is a storm drain problem, and I've talked about that on the podcast before. So when water does get to that area, there is an issue. And as I said, it's a city storm drain underneath an NDOT highway in the CSX right-of-way. Mm-hmm. So we're working on fixing it,
yes.
But if you know anything about moving projects through that kind of pipeline, it takes a very long time, especially, I'll just say it, on the CSX side. We could wait for a permit for years, right? So that's why water tends to collect there. But where is the water coming from? That's a different story because it's not just rainwater, and you'll see water standing there when it hasn't rained for a long time. And what's been going on this summer is that there is a water leak of some kind at the AT&T facility up on Main Street. So right up the alley from where you see that water. And I say a water leak, I'm not necessarily talking about, the domestic water coming into the building. They have chillers, they have their air conditioning, they have all kinds of things going on in that building. And there's an excessive amount of water coming out, leaking down, coming down the alley. So that's why the water is there. We've tested the water. We know where it's coming from, and it's coming from there. They were working on a solution for that, and I think maybe they have gotten it fixed since I'm not seeing water there right now. But that's where the water's coming from. There were some comments on social media that this was, a city water main that has burst and water's just flowing, and people are getting billed, and that's not the case.
Right.
So the water was coming from the AT&T building. That actually happened last summer, and they had it fixed, and then it happened again this summer. So that's why you're kind of seeing the water there. But once it's there, yes, it does have trouble draining. So it's kind of a combination of two things going on there.
Okay. And we've heard a lot of buzz about this, but who gets to decide where the new proposed Kroger is located?
Yeah, it's interesting. We have talked at length. This community has talked about the shortage of grocery options in this community. We've worked on it. We've talked about it over and over. We've worked on that for a long time to add grocery capacity. And Kroger has announced their intention. It's not totally a done deal yet, but their intention to build a Kroger marketplace on the south side. So one of the questions I frequently get is, well, why in the world did you decide to put it on the south side? Why would you not put it elsewhere? And the really simple answer is, I don't decide, right? Kroger makes that decision, and there's a lot of factors that they take into consideration. They do their homework. They have to be confident in where they're putting that store, that it's going to succeed. And they're the ones investing the millions of dollars to build it. So it is, their decision to make about where they're going to invest their money. So why do I think they chose to build on the south side? Well, I can tell you some of the things that are important to them is traffic counts. They're going to look at that. Proximity to other shopping destinations, that's extremely important to them. All those things coming together. And you have to remember that a store like that, it's not just about the shoppers in Crawfordsville, as much as we like to think it is.
Right.
That's a regional draw. So they have to be situated as close as possible to where their customers are coming from, so to speak. And if you look, we look at the cell phone data, we see where shoppers are coming from. They're coming from the South, the West, those kind of areas. We don't get a lot. We get some from the North, but you hit the county line and people are going. If you're north, they're going north to Lafayette. Right. If you're east, they're going to Boone County and Hendricks County in those areas. So it makes sense, I guess, strategically. If you're a regional draw, that you want to be closer to the region you're drawing shoppers from.
Right.
So all those things come into play there. But certainly they've made the decision that that's where they need to be. So they're looking at that data. I think also it's important to remember, I talk to people about this frequently, only people in Crawfordsville internally view ourselves as South Side, East Side, West Side, North Side.
Right.
The outside world, I'm telling you, does not view Crawfordsville in those terms.
Right.
So when I hear people say, we need on the East Side, when I talk to retailers or brokers or builders about that, they look at me like I'm speaking a foreign language. And I still vividly recall a conversation I had with one retailer, and I said, we really need stuff on the East Side. And he's like, the East Side of Crawfordsville is 1.5 miles from the South Side,
right.
So in their world, that does not compute, right? I know to us, that's a long distance, but to the outside world, it's not. So all those things come together. But ultimately that decision rests with the people who are going to invest the millions of dollars, and they have to think they're going to be successful. Do I always agree with their formula and their algorithm? No, not necessarily. I think sometimes we prove it wrong, but ultimately it's their decision, and they've made the decision that that's where they think they need to be successful.
Okay. And is it true that Starbucks is building a new store on 231 North?
Well, yes, I think. They're going through the process. So, yeah. It's not, again, a 100% done deal at this point, but they've certainly been moving through the permitting process and doing all the things they need to do to build a store there. This is where it gets confusing. The store would be located between the Holiday Inn Express and the gas station, the Marathon Station. So in between those two, okay, that's where the Starbucks store would be located. So it appears as though they are. And I just talked about those, those formulas, those algorithms that companies use.
Yeah.
I use Starbucks as an example of how those can be wrong. So, for many years, whether you like Starbucks or you don't, we heard a lot in this community about how we needed a Starbucks. And we were having the conversations with brokers and developers. And what we heard back was that this community could not support a Starbucks. A Starbucks would not be successful here according to their evaluation and their algorithm and all those things. And we I don't think so. I think it would be successful here. And if you strictly use their model, it would not be successful. Well, they were convinced to come here, and that store has been very successful by all accounts. And now they're talking about opening a second one.
Right.
So that just shows how their models can be wrong. Absolutely. Many times. And we use that as an example when we're trying to make that case.
Okay. So speaking of the 231 North area, that Marathon gas station is built on. What's going there?
Yeah. Well, so a lot of people think that's where Starbucks is going, and that's not where Starbucks is going. Starbucks is planning to build in the lot south of there, right? The short answer is we don't really know. The owner added on, and it's space for lease. Now, I know the last few days there's been a lot of stuff on social media about a certain, fast food restaurant that's coming into one of them. It may or may not be true. We don't know that. We don't have access to that. So, but it's just space for lease, and it will be probably, I'm guessing, light retail and food options. But it's speculative. They build it and then see who wants to lease the space and be there.
Yeah.
It looks nice.
It does.
And it's in a great spot. So I think it'll be successful, whatever they do.
Awesome.
But we don't know. It wasn't built specifically for whatever, as far as we know.
And, people want to know, how do I know if my house is inside the city limits? We've talked about people don't necessarily understand or know the city limits versus county, especially if you live in the county but have a Crawfordsville address still. How do you know if you're inside the city limits? Yeah,
that's a very good one. And it's not as easy as you think, because those lines are they're rather jagged in places. And There are areas that are not inside the city limits that are surrounded entirely by areas that are in the city limits. It's kind of a mess, to be honest. Thank you, Indiana General Assembly. So the way you can tell is by going to the county's website and go to what we call Beacon, and you can see the Montgomery County GIS there, and you can see the maps. There are settings over on the side that you may have to adjust so you can see aerial photography and all that. It's pretty user-friendly. And you can see the city lines right there, and you can see exactly where they're at. Sometimes it's a little behind, like we just did some annexation, and it may take a few months for that to appear. But it's pretty accurate other than that. And you can go on there and look. You can also look, if you go on there and click on your parcel, you can tell if it's a city tax ID parcel or not a city tax ID on your parcel. And that takes a little bit of practice to figure out. But once you look at several of them, you can kind of see the pattern there. So yeah, Beacon is the place to go.
Yes.
And if you have a question, by all means, give us a call. We'll help you. We'll help you sort it out. And there are, quite honestly, a few that are kind of confusing because they think it was annexed 40 years ago. We can't find the record of it, or we think it was annexed 40 years ago and they don't, and we're trying to find the record. Sometimes it can be rather confusing, but by all means, please check those, because we had a parcel that was pretty far out that was being taxed as a city, as being in the city, that wasn't, and the owner didn't catch it for decades.
Wow.
So you want to check those and make sure they're accurate, but that's the easiest way to tell. Go to Beacon.
Okay. And we've talked about this a couple times in some of our general updates in terms of what we're going to do long-term with trash and recycling and different things. And you've mentioned that the city is paying for those recycling bins at Walden's.
Yes.
Why does it cost the city for the recycling?
Yeah, that's a question we had. It was like, well, if I take items to a scrapyard, they pay me for it, right? So why do you have to pay for recycling? And the answer lies in the fact that we're not picking up scrap metal per se, other than the aluminum that might be in the recycling. Everything else in the recycling stream is paper, plastics, those kind of things. And what really happened was, basically during the pandemic, the recycling market was turned upside down, because what was largely happening, and I'm grossly oversimplifying this, right? But container ships would come to the States with products, and then those containers would be reloaded with plastics and recycled material that was sent overseas and then processed. And that ended. And so now it's been a matter of domestic facilities being built to really handle that plastics recycling and the cardboard recycling. And that is happening. That happens right here in Crawfordsville now. We have a plastics recycling facility right here with Polycycle on 231 South. So, but the bottom line is that they're not going to pay you for plastic and cardboard. You have to pay them to take it and process it to get it to a recycling facility. So that's why we're seeing that. Yes, there are aluminum cans probably, and some steel and tin and stuff like that in there. That does get credited to us, but it's by far not enough to even come close to make it a situation where we don't have to pay for recycling. So it's because of what we're recycling largely, and it is something that we have to consider. So for the city of Crawfordsville, we have two kinds of recycling. Let's say we have the kind that the trash truck picks up at your house, what we call curbside, and that gets dropped off at Walden's and they process that. And then we also have the kind where you drop it off at the collection site on Wabash Avenue. So when we look at this and we look at the cost, what I've said is, if push comes to shove with all the changes in the tax structure, if something's at risk, it's probably paying for the drop-off site on Wabash Avenue. Our residents would still have recycling at their curbside, but we might not have the other one. So I don't know. It's safe for 25, I think. Yeah. We're almost through the budget process, so I think it's safe for 25 and 26, but we get beyond that, we'll have to see.
Yeah.
But that's what's going on with recycling.
Okay. And, we had this next question on the list, and right before we started recording, we got somebody to call in and ask
there was a call right here
question.
This morning in the mayor's office, asked this very question.
Can I dispose of TVs and appliances at the yard waste site?
Yes, you can. And that sounds confusing because it sounds like it's a yard waste site. That's not yard waste. But we do have a collection trailer there and we fund that. So if you have appliances or TVs, any resident of Montgomery County, the county participates in that as well. You can drop those off there. You put them in the trailer. It's very easy to drop things off, and then it gets recycled as well. Mm-hmm. So you can drop those off there. Any appliance, TV, anything like that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Nice and easy.
And it's monitored. So, I mean, it does really well. There's somebody there, for the yard waste site. So they check what goes in. We don't have problems with dumping or anything like that.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Why does water service get shut off for delinquent sewer accounts, and then it also costs to get it restored?
Yeah, I get this question. When I get this question, people are pretty upset usually.
Yes.
So
should I have asked more aggressively?
Yeah, it's right. So wastewater or sewer is operated as a utility. I think that's the first thing you have to understand as part of this, right? It's not, yes, the city owns it, but city taxpayers aren't funding the operation of the sewer system, right? It's funded by the users. Mm-hmm. And those are probably one and the same, although there's some differences.
Right.
And so what happens when somebody doesn't pay their sewer bill after 3 months, they get delinquent notices, and after they've not paid for 3 months, then the water is shut off to the residents. Mm-hmm. That sounds kind of harsh, but the reality is, and we've seen this from experience, like during the pandemic, we suspended that for a while and said, okay, we're not going to do that. There are a significant number of people who will not pay their sewer bill if there's no,
right.
If there's not any kind of negative, outcome from doing that. So, so we have to do that to make sure people pay. And you say, well, what if they don't pay? What does that mean? Well, it means that those who are paying are going to pay it. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean that, hey, we take it out of city coffers to pay to make up the difference from the tax. It literally has to be paid by the other people who are actually paying their bill. Mm-hmm. So a utility has to support itself, right? It has to be self-funded. And so if you're running short and you have, I don't know, make up a number, $100,000, $150,000 worth of delinquency, that has to be made up by those who are actually paying the bill. Yeah. So there is no magic, the city can just make it up. That doesnn't happen with a utility. So that's why that occurs. We never want to see that happen. Right. I mean, we do everything we can to work with people and to help them. And frequently what I hear is people say, well, gosh, I was just barely late and they shut it off. Well, the reality is you were already 3 months late. Yeah. Right. And we have a great billing office. If there's something going on, and you need help, by all means, reach out to them and they will work with you. Mm-hmm. But I hate to say it, but there are just a large number of people, significant number of people, I shouldn't say large, significant number of people who just, if there's no consequences, they just won't pay it.
Right.
And so we have to have that mechanism in place to protect those who are actually paying their bill like they should be.
Yeah.
Why does it cost to turn it back on?
Mm-hmm.
This is where it gets really confusing because remember, we don't own the water service in Crawfordsville. It's privately owned.
Yep.
So for that company to go shut that off and then have to go turn that back on, they have a fee. Mm-hmm. And what you're being charged is their fee to do that.
Yeah.
They're not going to just, spend their time and resources out there doing this. They have to be compensated for it. And so the fee that you get, there's no markup, there's no money in it for the city or the utility. It's just the fee that Indiana American Water charges to do that.
Okay.
So that's why that happens. Probably one of the more unpleasant parts of being mayor is you have to deal with that. But it's just a reality. I mean, we have to have a wastewater utility, and for that to work, people have to pay their portion. Mm-hmm. So.
Okay. How do I request a proclamation? So oftentimes people will call in and they want you to read a proclamation.
Yeah. How do they request a proclamation?
On our website. We, in the past it was, just call in or send an email. But
it was kind of haphazard. I'll just say it. Okay. We figured it. Now we have a really good process.
Yeah. We've got an online form on our website. So if you go to our website, crawfordsville.in.gov, and then up in that search bar, if you just type in proclamations, it will take you to a mayoral proclamation page, and it walks you through all of the information you need to submit. And it's a really easy online fillable form, and it gets sent right to us. And then we can go ahead and prepare that, and then we get it to you digitally, and then
we'll review it first.
Yeah.
Make sure
yes.
it's appropriate. But yeah. yeah, we'll get it all ready and go from there. So
Yeah.
it works really, really well this way compared to what we did in the past. It's
a nice way to track it too, because we try, to make sure there's not 3 proclamations on the same day. And I mean, we don't have hundreds of these coming in, but I think it was the month of May. I think every week there was something for some reason there was something consistently, but we don't want to overlap where there's multiple things happening on the same day.
And we like doing them. We like calling attention to things, it's and highlighting the good things that are happening and the good people that are doing good things and all that stuff. So yeah, just go to the website. It's all right there.
Submit those. It's easy. And what are the regulations on open burning inside the city and outside the city? And can we have fire pits or, what does that look like?
Yeah, that's confusing. Yeah. I'll tell you. And I'll also tell you that as former fire chief, I will tell you it's confusing. So here's the deal. Inside the city, you're really not allowed to open burn, right? Now, here's the problem. There's some gray area there. And there's some definitions that are not clearly defined. So that creates a lot of ambiguity and a lot of issues. And what I mean is, how do you distinguish between somebody with a wood-fired grill versus somebody who's just got a campfire, right? I mean, it gets to be really confusing. And then all the different kinds of, ways of cooking outside right now, all those things come into play. So as a general rule, you're not to open burn in the city. And if you're burning leaves and sticks and doing all those kind of things, it will not be, it's not allowed, period, right? Where it gets confusing is the grills and some of that kind of stuff. The fire pits are kind of in that gray area too, where it gets confusing. As a general rule, I will say they're not allowed, but there is some gray language there that makes it kind of confusing. What needs to happen is we need to go back and fix those gray areas in the ordinances. And we've been talking about that for a while. Quite frankly, just haven't found the language that we think makes the most sense, right? So, but burning leaves, for example, in the fall is absolutely not allowed. And I remember years ago, we did allow it, and you had some blocks, like somebody had, a respiratory problem and you weren't allowed in that block. It was a mess trying to figure it out. So that's kind of the deal there. However, and I'm going to put a huge asterisk right here, we still have to go by state law. And Indiana law says if you are burning and it's causing somebody else any kind of health concern at all, so if somebody else complains, you have to put it out. And I don't care if you're in downtown Crawfordsville, or if you're 20 miles out in the country, if somebody else complains that it's a health issue, it has to be put out, period. So even if you say, well, I'm cooking outside and I have a fire pit going and I'm doing whatever, if your neighbor says, I have a respiratory problem and this is bothering me, it has to be put out, period. That's Indiana law. For years, we saw a lot of the smaller communities that would allow open burning in their communities, and they still have to follow state law, or they would allow trash burning in the smaller communities. You cannot burn trash in Indiana anywhere at any time, period. When you can burn outside the city, it is clean product. So it's, stuff where you cleared trees, that kind of stuff. You can never burn trash. You can't burn tires and shingles. All those other kind of things are prohibited. So it is kind of a confusing process, but as a general rule, those are kind of things you have to follow. But state law trumps it all. And if anybody's complaining, it has to be put out, whether it's in the city, outside the city, doesn't matter. The best thing to do is just be a good neighbor, talk to your neighbors, right? Or invite them over if you're going to have a fire, invite them over, right? But if you for example, where I live, I have a lot of older neighbors, and I'm not going to burn because I know it's probably going to cause them an issue. So you just have to think about those things. Yeah. But that's what's going on with burning.
Okay.
Yeah. And certainly, if you have questions about that, call the fire department. They'll walk you through. If somebody complains, they'll come out. They're not going to be mean. They're going to talk, try to sort it out. And if it needs to be put out, they'll put it out, go from there. Then you have the whole other issue of burning from a safety standpoint, and there again, outside the city where we're largely talking, you have to use common sense. So many fires happen outside the city, field fires and things like that, because people are burning when it's windy or when they shouldn't be burning or it's too dry. So whole set of issues there that you have to think about, but that's probably for another day.
Yes.
Yeah.
That could be a whole episode.
It could be a whole episode.
Yes. And I would say this is one of our most frequently asked question categories. I would say there's a lot of questions that kind of fall under this topic, but people want to know where they can get information about Parks and Rec, whether that is what are the fees, what are the schedules, how do I rent out the facility, what classes do I have available to me? There are so many things that people want to know about Parks and Rec. That department, it houses a lot of things.
Yeah. Probably the top thing searched on the website.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
And really the best place that I could direct people is to our city website, and that's crawfordsville.in.gov/parks. And they keep that website very, very up to date with their schedules, all of their information. And then they're very active on their social media page as well, the Crawfordsville Parks and Recreation Facebook page. Stay up to date there. And then again, you can always call them at 765-364-5175. And I'm sure they would be happy to answer any questions that you might have. But that is definitely our most searched thing on the website.
Yeah. It's all right there.
It is.
And I will say Park and Rec does an excellent job of keeping their portion of the city's website up to date.
Yeah.
It's always up to date, always has the latest on their programs.
And they have a lot of information too. So
Yep.
it's well kept and easy to find as well.
Yep.
And more recently, I've started to notice this as a question on the website. And
I got this very question 2 days ago.
Really?
Yes.
See,
Yeah.
it's
Yesterday.
People need to
Yesterday,
know.
actually, yeah.
So how do I get a copy of a birth certificate, marriage certificate, or a death certificate?
Yeah. And I think we're seeing, the whole real ID
Yes.
thing came up, and that deadline is come and gone, but there are people, maybe if you don't fly,
Mm-hmm.
very frequently, you're still trying to deal with that. So, so the city has nothing to do with any of those.
Mm-hmm.
First disclaimer, but we'll help you figure out where to go. Right. So, birth certificates and I believe death certificates, you need to contact the health department. You can go online. I just did this before we came here to make sure. You go online and it walks you through the process.
Mm-hmm.
There's a form you can download. It's best if you go there in person. You can file it through online where you actually email it to them. What I did notice, and this is probably going to be a challenge for most people, if you do that, it has to be notarized.
Okay.
So that probably creates a barrier, probably easier to go there. But if you can't do that, you can do it through electronically, but you have to have it notarized. My first reaction was, well, that's not very user-friendly. But then you think about it, you don't want somebody getting your birth certificate.
Right.
So
Right.
that really makes sense when you stop and think about it.
Yes.
So it's there to protect you and protect you from other people getting a copy of your birth certificate and doing whatever with it. So the health department, Montgomery County Health Department, if you just Google it, you can find that pretty easily. Marriage certificate is through the clerk's office, the county clerk's office at the courthouse.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
And I don't know the process there to get a copy of that, but yeah, it's an issue for a lot of people, especially, if women are getting the real ID and you've been married, you got to show that name change and,
Yes.
and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah.
Okay. Our age-old question that we get all the time.
All the time.
All the time.
It comes and goes.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. This question comes
with the
up.
Season.
Yeah. It's true. This question comes up in that we have like listservs with other cities. And this question, it'll be a hot topic for a few weeks and it kind of goes away. Then it comes back.
Okay. Can we have chickens in the city?
Can we have chickens in the city? And like everything, it's kind of a complicated answer.
Maybe.
Technically, legally, yes. But you have to meet the ordinance, and there's probably only 1 or 2 parcels inside the city that meet the ordinance.
Yeah.
So what the ordinance says, you have to be so many feet from the property line and all those kind of things. You have to have a really big parcel to make that work. So as a general rule, no, because you probably can't meet that. Why are those restrictions in place? Because, again, it's citizen driven. And every time this issue has come up, the majority of citizens have been pretty outspoken. I don't want chickens next to me. I don't want the noise or the odor, whatever's involved. I don't want that. So, and I know we all know that there were people who'd be very responsible with them, and there are people who won't be, right? So you kind of have to play to that. But that's the way that's laid out in Crawfordsville right now. A lot of cities, a lot of towns are working on this and dealing with this. Actually, I was just reading an article where Lafayette just has been dealing with this issue. They decided to do like a test run to allow some of this, but the ordinance has a sunset on it. So they're gonna try it for a little bit, but they had pretty tight restrictions on it too.
Yeah.
And then the ordinance automatically goes away in a year unless there's a move to extend it further out.
Okay.
So a tough issue everywhere. We understand how people want those, but we also understand we have 16,000 people living in a few square miles. There has to be some ground rules, and it has to protect the health, not only the health, but the neighboring property values and those kind of things. Right. So trust me, folks, not everybody agrees on these things. Right. And we know that we're trying to find what works for the 16,000 people living next to one another.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. And another big topic. We've got Motocross of Nations coming, and the questions are only ramping up.
Yes.
As we get closer and closer. We have officially hit the under 30-day threshold.
Wow.
And yeah.
That's a little scary.
It is. We've been talking about this for over a year, and it's here before we know it. So people want to know, what days are there Motocross of Nations events? And I think the best answer is really, there's a lot of things happening from that Thursday. We'll start to see people coming in, and then Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, October 3rd through 5th, are the busy days. Now, we don't have full official schedule in terms of races and what their schedule is, but in terms of our community, the big things to know are Friday, October 3rd, starting at 5 p.m., we have a parade downtown Crawfordsville. It will follow the same route as the Christmas parade, though it will be very different in nature than the Christmas parade.
Very much so. Very spirited.
Yes.
It's going to be a lot of fun.
It is. It's loud. It's going to be exciting. People are going to be cheering for their country, showing their country pride, and it's just going to be electric. It will be unlike anything we've seen. It's
going to be fun. I will say it's also going to be safe.
Yes.
There will be a rather large security presence. We have to make sure that everybody's safe, and remember that we have teams from 37 or 38 countries, right? And if you follow the news at all, there are all kinds of geopolitical issues going on. So we have to make sure that everybody's here to have a good time, and nobody gets upset. A team from wherever, and I don't like that country or what they're doing. So we have to make sure that we cover all of our bases with this, and we are. So, but it is going to be a lot of fun.
Yes. So that's that Friday at 5, and then immediately following the parade, we're estimating around 6:30 or so, there will be Motoville Oktoberfest down at Pike Place. So we'll have food vendors, drinks, music, family activities. We're switching gears, and no pun intended, a little bit from our typical Oktoberfest with, brat toss and all those things. And instead, we're doing things that are more moto related. We're going to have a giant helmet photo opportunity where people can stand inside a motocross helmet and get their photos taken. And then we will also have another giant photo opportunity down at the Marie Canine Plaza, and it will say #Motoville. So during that weekend, Crawfordsville will become Motoville.
Motoville. Yeah.
And then
by all means, come to those things and check it out.
Yeah. Even if you're not interested in racing.
Yeah.
This is something very, very special for our community to be able to host. Last year, the race was held in Great Britain, and this year it's right here in Crawfordsville. Here.
Next year, it's going back to France. Yeah.
Very cool.
Very cool. Yeah.
And then as far as the races go, on Saturday at the Ironman Raceway, there are qualifying races, and then Sunday is the main race day.
Yeah, so that's a little different structure than what we're used to with our other races. Usually Saturday, like the Nationals, Saturday is the big day, and Sunday is kind of amateurs. This is very different. So this is ramping up to Sunday's the big finale.
Yeah.
And what we know is that the fans probably, some of them will certainly leave Sunday evening, but a lot of them will start to really trickle out on Monday. They tend to stay Sunday evening. The party goes on. Yes. And then Monday is where they really start to leave. So it's not like, okay, Sunday night, there'll be a big traffic rush and this will be over. It'll kind of spread into Monday for sure. And we're planning for that from the traffic perspective as well.
Yeah. And if you're interested in attending the race, We have around 500 tickets available for Crawfordsville and Montgomery County residents at a 50% discount for Sunday general admission. And if you're interested in that, on our city website, if you go to, again, crawfordsville.in.gov/MXON, there is a plethora of information all about the race, what's happening for our community, where people might need to stay. If you're a local business and you need more information, it is all right there. And if you look at, there's a Motocross of Nations information for local residents tab, and that's where the link is to get your name on the list for a 50% discounted ticket.
Good deal.
Yeah.
And that was something the promoters insisted. Like, we know that the community's putting a lot of effort into this, and there's some sacrifice involved on the part of the community. And we want to be good neighbors. And so they've offered this 50% because the ticket price is not inexpensive, and they're aware of that.
Yeah.
Right. So this allows local people to go and experience it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. And then people want to know, where can they stay during Motocross of Nations?
Your house.
My house? I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe. I don't know where you're going to stay.
Right. And, we know that the hotels are already booked. We recognize that we don't have the hotel capacity for 30,000 visitors and fans. And the hotels are booked with staff and people working the event and teams.
Yeah.
And we've gotten creative in terms of, reaching out to the community for Airbnb options, renting out your RV, if you have land, allowing people to do that. But then, of course, there is also camping options right at the race venue. And
at the venue and in campgrounds
in and around locally,
Montgomery County. Yeah.
Yes. If people are interested in staying right at Ironman Raceway, I do know I think they said they're 90% full already.
Yeah.
So there are limited spaces available there, but there are plenty of campgrounds around the community that are interested and looking for people to come stay with them. And so
it's all on the website, right?
It is. Everything's on the website. And you can always Visit Montgomery County, our visitors bureau, and they're happy to help people plan a stay, figure out what options are still available and what you could do while you're here as well. And then if you are listening and you are wanting to open your home to visitors and guests.
We get that question quite a bit, more than I expected.
I think so too. People are like, how do I do that? Or maybe I might be interested.
Yeah.
We're pushing people to use Airbnb if they're interested in doing that. And again, on the website under that local resident tab, there is cheat sheets and FAQs all about how do I list my home. Maybe it's your full home. You can also offer just a room in your home so you can stay there as well. And all of that information is right on the website. And Casey Hawker-Smith from FC Tucker is our local expert on helping people get set up with Airbnb. And then we have a website called Outdoorsy for people who are looking to rent their RVs out or campers. You can do it through Outdoorsy. And then if you have land, there's a website called Hip Camp. And you can post your land for people to bring their own RVs or pitch a tent or something of the sort.
Yeah, and I've heard Casey explain several times. One of the questions we get a lot is, well, I might be interested, but I want to know who's coming to my home and stuff. And there's a way for you to vet through this process, so you can say yes or no to particular guests.
Yeah.
So there's a rating system and stuff like that where you can check all that out. So not for everyone for sure, but there are people interested in doing it. So go to the city's website. It's all linked right there.
It is. We've got a ton of information on that Motocross of Nations site on our website.
I don't know what we're going to talk about in another month.
Well, I don't know what I'm going to do with all my free time.
The folks that visit Montgomery County are going to be bored here for a little bit.
Yes.
So they need a breather. I'm sure they've been going nonstop. So it's going to be, that whole weekend is going to be a lot of fun for this entire community.
It is.
Yep.
And, I think it's something to, like we said, we're literally bringing the world to Crawfordsville.
We are. Yeah. Yep. If we've said 37 teams, and now I guess
it's growing.
It's growing.
It's growing.
So that's interesting. Yeah. We might have more teams than that. So,
a lot of people.
And as we've said from day one, our goal is not just to host this, but to host the best version of this.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I understand, I've never been when it's in France. I understand the bar is pretty high when it's in France. So
I think we're on track,
I think we can top. Yeah. There's so many people working on this and doing great things that it's just going to be amazing when it all comes together.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Mayor, is there any other questions that you've gotten recently that you think we need to answer?
I don't think so. I think we covered all of them.
Yeah. Well, if we didn't answer something that you are still wanting to know, reach out and let us know.
And I'll have another community forum pretty soon. We have not decided on it yet, but come to those and
ask your questions there.
I get different people come to those, which is fantastic, and a lot of it's driven by when and where we have it, right? So the last one I did at lunchtime, so that was a different crowd than one in the evening or one in early morning. So if you got a question, let us know. We'll get the answer for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you all so much for listening. Don't forget to check out Yodel, our Community Connections calendar and newsfeed, where you can see all of the community events happening in one easy and convenient location, and send us topics or questions or things you want to know about so we can feature those on a future episode. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week. Make sure you hit the subscribe button on this podcast so you never miss an episode. And if you aren't already, follow us on Facebook at City of Crawfordsville Official, on Twitter at City of Seaville, and on Instagram at City of Crawfordsville. We hope you have a wonderful day and can't wait for you to join us next week.